We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves. We making major moves. We going all in, like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves.
What is up, everybody? I'm Mr. Man, and today we're going to go down the rabbit hole. I've been looking into the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, the CBFP, I believe it's called, CBFP, and that brought me down deep into the hole. Like it's dirty. It's dirty down there, okay? You don't want to join me, but I'm going to take you guys on that trip. Anyways, so this is about the CFPB joined with the e-sign that came into power in 2000. And you know what? Let's just do this. So the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, this is the document there, okay? And what this is, summary. The Electronic Funds Transfer Act, the EFTA, as amended by the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, establishes certain protections for consumers sending international money transfers or remittance transfers. The CBFB, or the Bureau, Remittance Rule and Regulation E, Remittance Rule or Rule, implemented these protections. So these protections exist now under Regulation E. The Bureau is proposing changes to the rule to mitigate the effects of the expiration of a statutory exception that allows insured institutions to disclose I can't read today. To disclose estimates instead of exact amounts to customers. This exception expires on July 21st, 2020. In addition, the Bureau is proposing to increase a safe harbor threshold in a rule related to whether a person makes remittances transfers in the normal course of business, which would have the effect of reducing compliance costs for entities that make a limited number of remittance transfers annually. So over here, this is expired now. It said the Bureau proposing to change rule mitigating the effects of expiration of a statutory exception that allows insured institutions to disclose estimates. So yeah, they can't disclose estimates anymore. Now it has to be the exact amount, and they have a finite time to say this is what your estimate is. I don't remember how long that was. It might be a 30-second thing where the estimate exists, and then it has that 30-second buffer time before it changes again and it doesn't stand or hold true. So, and the way to implement this, or to have this reality, let's do this. So, here, the Bureau has continued to monitor the remittance transfer markets since the publication of the assessment report, and observers that most of these developments continue to progress. Examples include the continued growth and expanding functionality of the Society of SWIFT, Global Payment Innovation, GPI, tracking product, which can increase the amount of upfront information available to sending institutions. So it's now you're not finding out afterwards. You spend you want to transfer $100, and by the time the $100 gets there, you're like, what? Only $60 got there? You find out after the fact. They want to make it so it's clear now, so you find out immediately. This is how much it's going to cost. Here's the fees involved. Here's what's going to be at the end, what the end person receives. And the expansion of the major payment card networks, capacity to support cross-border payments, and continued growth of fintech non-bank remittance transfer providers, and their further expansion into partnerships and other relationships with banks and credit unions, which allows such entities to tap into those closed network payment systems that non-bank remittance transfers providers have developed, and the continued growth and expanding partnerships of virtual currency companies such as Ripple, which offer both a payments messaging platform to support cross-border money transfer as well as a proprietary virtual currency, XRP, which can be used to effect settlement of those transfers. Okay? To the degree Banks and credit unions increased their reliance on closed network payment systems for sending remittances, remittance transfers, and other cross-border money transfers. The Bureau notes that this could result in greater standardization and ease by which sending institutions can quote exact covered third-party fees and exchange rate, and that's so. Here we have a video about Reg E. This is a video about Reg E. Check it out. There we go. CFPB Remittance Rule Regulation E. This is a good grueling 100 hour and 10 minutes. And I don't mean grueling as in something bad, but I mean when you don't know what's going on, you're just trying to grasp at things to figure this out. So I've been watching it and I figured some things out. So let me present that to you guys here, okay? Let me put myself on mute.
The receipt can be given on the next regularly scheduled periodic statement or within 30 days after payment. And I'll refer to this timing later on as the telephone rule. Now that I've talked about timing, I'm going to turn to disclosure format. Generally, under the remittances rule, disclosures need to be clear and conspicuous, in writing, and in retainable form, meaning the consumer must get a copy that he or she can keep. Under the rule, there is an exception to the requirement that disclosures be given in writing. If a sender electronically makes a request to send a transfer, the provider can provide the prepayment disclosure electronically. We've received several questions about how the eSign Act works with this rule.
How the eSign Act works with this rule. Let's hear what she has to say, and then let's dive into the eSign Act. Now that we know that the CFPB is they've updated the CFPB Remittance Regulation E for remittances to include XRP. Okay, let's dive into what she has to say.
The eSign Act, for those not familiar with it, is a long-standing federal law not specifically related to the remittances statute that talks about how electronic disclosures can be made. Generally, when disclosure must be provided in writing, the eSign Act permits electronic delivery of a disclosure if consumer consent and other requirements of the Act are met. And we typically call this eSign consent. So under the remittances rule, generally, if a sender electronically makes a request to send a transfer, the provider can give the prepayment disclosure electronically without eSign consent. However, to provide the receipt electronically, the provider must get eSign consent. Otherwise, it needs to be provided in writing. In addition, nothing in the remittance rule limits the ability of a provider to provide electronic disclosures so long as the eSign Act is followed, including getting eSign consent.
Again, recording myself with the mute button on. Unbelievable. Take two. The eSign Act explained. This came out August 5th, 2022. And what it says is many businesses and their customers customers use electronic signature to finalize agreements and contracts. After all, this method is more efficient and convenient than collecting wet signatures in person. That's what this pen is. That's a wet signature, all right? It's called a wetted tool. However, the question is, are electronic signatures as valid and binding as wet signatures? Back in the early days, they had those big curly feather pens, right? They were signing off on things, dipping it in ink at that point. They were using calligraphy. Wetted ink was the way to go. So now they're asking, does digital hold the same legality behind it? The eSign Act of 2000 was passed to ensure that forms and documents with electronic and wet signatures are treated equally under the law. It also expanded the rules that govern in-person signing and included electronic signatures now. So many e-signature solution providers, such as, that's not important, that is neither here nor there. So the eSign Act was passed in 2000, all right? In 2000, that's the main takeaway from there. And then, what happened afterwards? Here we go. Understanding the UETA and eSign Act. And this came out September 5th, 2023. I don't actually say tree, I say 3, but it just worked for that. So the basics of the UETA, the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act, adopted by most states, provides a comprehensive legal framework for electronic transfers. Its primary aim is to ensure that electronic signatures and records have the same legal effect as their paper-based counterparts. Promoting the use of technology in commerce and streamlining business processes. It defines an electronic record as an information created, generated, sent, received, or stored by electronic means. Bitcoin. Okay? That's Bitcoin. This includes email, digital contracts, online forms, and other electronic documents. When I say Bitcoin, now that this came out in 2000, Bitcoin came out in 2009, there was no way for someone to legally take their money from their bank and use their bank to connect to this exchange, which didn't have any legality to it either, and then to purchase Bitcoin and then to trade Bitcoin back later on. There should have been no legality to it, but clearly there was, right? Clearly there was. This came out before Bitcoin did. Coincidental? I don't know. Right? Just whatever. Or even biometric identifiers at this point. So Bitcoin just happened to come out at the right time. It came out in the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. Right? Just perfect. But they had the groundwork was being laid here. I'm just connecting dots, right? Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. So here is a document from the ntia.doc.gov, and it is a review of the exceptions to electronic signatures in Global and National Commerce Act. And this came out in June 2023. U.S. Department of Commerce, National Telecommunication and Information Administration. Woo! All right. National Telecommunication, and so the NTIA is Nancy Victor. She is the Assistant Secretary and Communication and Information. These guys have positions I've never heard of before, but I will most definitely read a document. So in the ES here, the executive summary, second paragraph. The information and data gathered regarding the e-sign exceptions demonstrates that some industry and consumer interactions using computers and the internet have become quite routine. And since the passage of e-sign in 2000, in these areas, procedures designed to protect consumers also have developed in accordance with e-sign's consumer protection provisions. With regards to areas involving highly personal matters, however, protective mechanisms have not evolved rapidly. So it's slow. So e-sign's in place, but the protective measures are slow. There's no security around it. There's none of that stuff yet. There's a framework for what its signatures now to be removed, and for documents to be signed electronically as long as both parties or all parties involved agree upon it. In summary, this evaluation reveals the following. Federal and state courts, the insurance and health industries, and the commercial and financial services industries have made significant advancements in developing optional electronic filings and information systems, and their respective consumer groups have adopted to electronic filing and purchasing systems. That's those POS systems we were talking about. Well, some of them, I guess all those different entities. Well, government agencies with oversight for recall information and manufacturers have found electronic mail a useful tool, email, in contacting consumers for product recalls. So now they're building the case for why it's a necessity, it's needed. E-sign exceptions involving highly personal, and financial interests, such as mortgage foreclosures and domestic law areas, are matters that may be unsuited to electronic information or access systems at this time because they have no security. Consumer privacy interest and the high risk of loss or damage to personal interests are the result of a failure. So bam, they've got it locked. They're trying to build the case for, yep, this works, but we can't use it because we need security. We need to protect you. So how do we protect you? We're going to go back to the beginning again. There's this document here put out by Blank Rome called Blockchain Technology Latest Development, presented by Keith Latorno. He Here is Keith Letourneau. Keith be a Letourneau. It's a Letourneau. I don't know if Italians actually say it like that. My best friend is Italian, and he doesn't speak the Italian. I think I speak more fluent than he does. Eh? Shit. Okay. So he is the co-chair Maritime Practice Group. Keith Letourneau is a member of our Maritime Emergency Response Team. That's cool. He's a member of MERT. Keith Letourneau focuses his practice on maritime and energy transactions and litigation matters, including contract negotiations and disputes, vessel arrestments and attachments, collisions and Allisons. I have no idea what Allisons is. This is like a Karen. I don't know. Oil and hazardous material pollutions, complex commercial litigations, OCSLA transactions and disputes, oil field contracts. I was out in the oil field. Insurance coverage opinions and cargo damage. So after reading it, I had to look it up, and it was, where is it moved? The OCSLA transactions and disputes. I had to look it up. This is what it is. Navigating OCSLA's choppy water. What choice of law will govern my offshore development contracts? So it has to do with contracts offshore. Okay, we're going back to this here. Back at Blank Rome. Now that we know who Keith Letourneau is, we can go down and make this make sense. This is back in 2018. Doesn't matter how old it is. We're here to learn, okay? Here's how the blockchain works, how they describe it to us here. You can pause and have a look. Here's how it actually works. They're describing what's happening here and the various hashes involved. I have no idea what that is. Might be hash time. I'm not even sure. And here they're talking about Bitcoin and blockchain startups market cap, and they're calling all blockchain as Bitcoin and blockchain. Crypto is Bitcoin. Okay, that's how they call it. But even back then, they knew capital market and financial services. They knew back then. There's Chain right there. Chain became Interstellar, and then that later rebranded itself as Onyx Coin at that point. So these little guys here, don't let them fool you. They are somebody also, okay? But yeah, they were talking this back then. There's Bit Inc. over there. There's Coinbase right there, right? They had these things set up from time. Here's the big players at this point here. Maersk and IBM had a deal back in the day called TradeLens. Didn't go through, but IBM still with Stellar. You got JPM there, Linux, Accenture with Ripple as well. Is that it there? No. Nope. So one of the things I want to go through here is this, the role of smart contracts, okay? I want to skip over this part here and come down to here. Here's some use cases. Some of the use cases are identify terms and conditions, define external sources and systems, code the contract and record it on the blockchain, okay? And self-execution when the defined conditions are met. Now here's why this is important. The use cases for smart contracts: enforceability, electronic signatures on Global and National Commerce Act, the e-Sign Act. So when the e-Sign Act came out in 2000, blockchain was already existing. They were implementing the rails to it. And then Bitcoin came out in 2009. How coincidental. They built the rails for Bitcoin to exist as an e-signature to be able to purchase and sell from exchanges at this point now. Are you seeing this? State law models on the uniform, and they're talking about Ripple already. And then state laws modeled on the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, or UETA, which we had gone over, provides sufficient legal foundation or blockchain based smart contracts to be enforced under current law. So now that we know the e-sign has to do with the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and in that the CFPB came out with amended Regulation E, which is remittances. And under Regulation E, that brings us over to eSign. And with eSign, we see how it's connected to the UETA. So Ripple is connected to smart contracts here, right? That's where we're going with this. So to electronically or cryptographically sign something now, we have the Electronic Signatures Act passed. So I hope you see how that brought us right back around, full circle. Full circle. It's a closed loop system, one that they've created strategically for themselves, that brought us through the CFPB, the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protections. It sounds like it's Spanish of some sort, and I don't speak Spanish, but that's what it reminds me of. The Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. That's what I hear. And then from here, we were learning about the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Board, and remittance rules under Regulations E. And Regulations E, as she said in here, brought us to eSign. eSign right here. And that act brought us over to right here, the UETA. We know that the eSign came out in 2000 before Bitcoin. And then this here, tighten it up with protection at that point. And then that protection brought us over to here. Under the executive summary, they're talking about what's involved and who's involved, and that there's a lack of confidence with the e-signature. So now we need to implement contracts to make people responsible for that. And that brought us over to here, right, to smart contracts, which brought us back to eSign. So eSigns are smart contracts. Smart contracts existed in 2000. Shots. Hope you guys found value on this one. I love you. Catch you on the next one.
We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.